Hi there. Okay, so we are talking about the French and Indian Wars. Now, several things to set up here first. So let's see, where do I want to go first? First, this is a series of wars that are going to happen over about 100 years. The first one's going to start in 1689 and the last one's going to end in 1763. So 4 different wars that we collectively refer to as the French and Indian Wars. But then, to complicate things, the fourth one, so there's 4 different wars. We call them the King William's War, Queen Anne's War, King George's War. And then the last one is actually called the French and Indian War. So kind of complicates things. And then another layer of complication is we in the colonies give them a different name than people over in Europe give them. So of these 4 wars, the first 3 wars start over in Europe, and then we end up fighting them here in the colonies. The last war, the French and Indian War, actually initiates here and then explodes in the world. Now, so we call them King William's War, Queen Anne's War, King George's War, and the French and Indian Wars. However, over in Europe, what they call them, I put that in parentheses on the outline, is the War of the League of Augsburg, the War of Spanish Succession, the War of Austrian Succession, and the 7 Years' War. So what you're interested in these 2 different names, the only reason I bring it up to you, is look at what we call them. We call them King William's War, Queen Anne's War, King George's War, the French and Indian War. What does that say about how we perceive the wars here, right? It suggests, now we're fighting King William's War. Now we're fighting Queen Anne's War. Now we're fighting King George's War. Like, we're always fighting some king or queen's war. It's not our war, it's their war. And so that's one reason those names are significant, is it suggests that we don't see it as ours. We're starting again, and we saw this in the last lecture when we were trying to become refined. We're starting to see ourselves as, we're still Englishmen and Englishwomen, right? But our experience is different here, and the name suggests that. Now, the other thing that I mentioned that's significant, right, is that last war starts here in the colonies and then explodes in the war, in the world. And that's something else about these wars, is these are world wars, right? We think of like World War I, World War II, and History 8. We think of those as world wars, but these are world wars. They're being fought all over the world between the English, the French, the Dutch, the Spanish, right? So world wars. What they're really being fought for, they say they're fighting for the War of the League of Augsburg or for Spanish Succession or for Austrian Succession, but really what's at stake in these wars is who gets control of the North American colonies. Who's gonna be in charge? Spoiler alert, you know the answer, right? It's gonna be England. England's gonna ultimately win all of these wars. And that's gonna have a whole other set of consequences, right, when England wins. One more thing I wanted to tell you. Oh, the name, French and Indian Wars. Think about that. It's not just the French and the Indians, right? I just told you, it's like everybody, the Dutch, the Spanish, the French, the English, and Native Americans are fighting on both sides of that. And some of them are staying neutral, right? The Iroquois, that constitution we looked at, they're staying neutral. They're not picking a side. So that's significant that we call it the French and Indian Wars. That goes back, the naming of that war goes back to King Philip's War. Remember, we called it King Philip's War because it was his war. We wanted to blame it on him. Then we don't have to accept any responsibility for it. This is another example of victors writing the history, right? It's their war. It's the French. It's the Indians. They're the problem, not us, not the upstanding English men and women who are colonists. It's not our war. They just fought us and we had to fight them back, and we ended up with the colonies. I'm being facetious here. I'm hoping you're getting that sense. Okay, I think that's what you need for that introduction. So if you've got any questions, as always, you can put those in a discussion board, send me an email. Take care.